All right, I call this section 3.5 since it is chapel day today and we had our little talk earlier. We'll call it 3.5a. So we'll probably push this, the lesson plans back a day. It says to do a worksheet. We're going to do a worksheet tomorrow. Maybe I'll skip that worksheet and just skip ahead till Friday. I know a lot of you guys aren't going to be here on Friday. We are not off school Friday. All right, so if you're not on the football team or have anything to do with it, you're still expected to be here, and I'm going to teach. We are going to do stuff in here. All right, so make sure that if you're not leaving for football, that you're here. And if you do leave for football, how do you know what we did in class? That's right. You go to the YouTube page. It's recording right now. All right, so here we go. All right, let's talk about an equation of a line. Let's do this first. Let's grab this. Put that right there. All right. So let's put a line on this. We've talked about this already, right? What is this one going across? It's the what? X-axis, correct? And this is the Y-axis. Okay, the X goes across, the Y goes up and down. If I had a point right there, how do I label that point? What if I went over 4 and I went up? What if that's 3 right there? Okay, what would that point be right there? What if I asked you to label it? You always start here, right? So which direction do I go first? And I go to the right or the X direction, so it's 4, and then I go what? Go up, and I go up 3. All right, so that point right there is 4, 3. All right, it's just review. We've already talked about that before. Everybody good with that? All right, so now what I'm going to do, let's get rid of that stuff. We'll keep the X and Y there. What I'm going to do is this. So I'm going to draw a line. It does keep going. All right, like this. Now, there's a couple things that's important about this line. All right, one is what we're going to talk about a lot, is where it crosses the Y-axis. Do you see the Y-axis right here? Do you see the red line? All right, if I asked you, I'm not going to, but if I asked you to come up and put a point where it crosses, where would you put it? Right there. Good. Okay. We give that a name. Okay, it crosses the Y-axis. We call it the Y-intercept. You guys remember doing this in algebra? Okay. If not, it's fine, because like I said earlier, I'm going to teach this from scratch. Okay, if this was an Algebra 1 class, this is how I would teach it. All right, so if you've never seen it before, I'm not expecting you to be able to do anything with it right now. All right, so everybody with me? That's the Y-intercept. Here's another thing that we're going to find on a line. So what we're going to do, we're basically going to give you, it's not really a code, but you can think of it like that, okay? We're going to write in the math language, all right, and describe this line right here. We're going to describe it basically with two things. One, we're going to describe where the Y-intercept is, and the other is we're going to describe it by how much it slants. And what do we call that, how much it slants? The slope, good. All right, so those are the two things that we're going to do. We're going to look at the slope of the line, and we're going to look at the, what was the second part? The Y what? The Y-intercept, okay? That's how we can describe the line to you. So if I told you, okay, this line has a Y-intercept of this, all right, whatever the number is, wherever it crosses the Y-axis, and it has a slope of this, rise over run, you should be able to graph that line. And we'll do a couple examples here in a second, all right? So if I wanted to find the slope from here to here, what would I do? I would rise this much, correct? And then I would what? Run this much, okay? Whatever those numbers are, okay? I didn't put any numbers in there, so we don't know right now, but I will in a minute here, okay? So those are the two things right there that I'm really concerned about when we talk about an equation of a line. Again, it's a description. It's a way It's a way to speak. It's like a sentence in math. It's a math sentence that describes this line to you. An equation of a line. All right? So it's got two things. It's got a slope and it's got a y-intercept. Those are the two things that we're going to concern ourselves with. Are you with me so far? Okay? Not too hard. So let's grab this graph so we can be a little bit more specific and accurate. Let's put a line on here. And we'll do a couple just to get you used to this. I'm going to put a line, and I want to describe it with two things. I want to describe it with its y. Oops, let's make that a color so it pops out a little bit. Use this red again. And let's put one right here. All right, there's 2 points. If I connect those 2 points, what do I get? I get a what? Get a line. Good. If I just connect 2 points, I always get a line. So what I want to do, I want you to tell me what the equation, what are the two things that we have to find? The what? The slope and the y-intercept. Let's do the y-intercept first. I think I wrote slope first earlier, but let's find the y-intercept. What does that mean, the y-intercept? It's where the red line does what? Crosses or touches, that's a good way to say it, touches the what? The y-axis. That's your y-axis right there, okay? Where does that red line touch the y-axis? At 3, at 0, 3. Good. So this point right here, you don't go anywhere on the x and you go up 3. 1, 2, 3. So the y-intercept is at 0, 3. Does that make sense or not? All right, so that's where it crosses the y-axis. That red line right there, it's where it crosses the y-axis at 0, 3. What's the other thing I need to find? The slope. Or I'll tell you what, let's do this. What letter do we use to represent slope? M. So let's write it as M. Now what I can do, I made sure that I knew that it hit right here and it hit right here. Okay? So how can I find the slope of that? I can rise over run, can't I? Okay, so let's do that. Let's start here and let's rise. How far do I have to rise? 1, 2, 3 to there. And then how far do I have to run? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So rise 3, positive 3, right? And run what? Positive 5. So what's the slope? It's rise over run. What's the rise? What's the rise? 3. The rise is 3. And what's the run? It's 5. So it's 3 over 5. 5 over 3 and 3 over 5 slope are completely different slopes. 5 over 3 would be a lot steeper, wouldn't it? Because 5 over 3, we'd go up 5 and just go over 3, right? And so it would go a lot steeper than what this would go. But this is 3 over 5. Those two things right there are super important, okay? The y-intercept crosses the y-axis at 3, or 0, 3, and the slope is 3/5. All right, now let's put it all together and make a little, like I said, a little math sentence out of it, okay? This is how we write it. I'm going to write out the letters. And by the way, we're not really going to talk about the x-intercept, okay? But the x-intercept would be A0, A going across this way, and you didn't go up and down, so that would be A0. This would be 0 what? Well, yeah, it's 3 on this one, but if I used A for anywhere across here, what would I use for anywhere up here? B, right. So I call this 0B. So they use the letter B to represent where it crosses the y-axis. Okay? So I'm going to write this down, and then we're going to talk about it. So y equals mx plus b. That's, again, something that you really need to memorize. All right? We're going to be talking about that a lot. And they give it a name. They give it a name. They call it the slope-intercept form. We're going to learn another form, And really, they teach it first, but I decided to go this direction and do it like this first, okay? They call this the slope-intercept form. Why do they call it slope? Because what's in there? The m, okay? The m, that's the slope. Which one's the intercept? We just talked about it a second ago. No, it's not the y. Remember I said the x-intercept is at a, 0. Where's the y-intercept at? 0 what? B. So that's a huge hint. So what does the b represent? The y what? Intercept, okay? So this is your slope, and this is your what? Your y-intercept. Now, the x and y. I think I had a professor, he was talking about something else, but I could put it here too. We kind of call it window dressing, all right, just to make it look real nice. Y equals mx plus b. The x and the y actually represent any point on that line. Like if I took a point right there, that point would be xy. This point right here, anywhere, okay, whatever that point is. I don't even know what that point is, but if I put it in here, that's your xy. Don't worry about that too much. We'll maybe talk about it another day. But just realize that when I have this, if I asked you to write the equation of a line in slope-intercept form, what would you write? Y equals what? Mx plus b. All right? So let's use it. Let's put it to good use. I'll keep that red one right there. Let's change to yellow. What if I gave you this? What if I said y equals 2/3 x minus 1? Everybody watching? This is not the time to have your mind wandering, okay? So everybody pay attention right here. If I gave you that equation in yellow right there, you should be able to take that and draw a line, and everybody should have the same line. Okay? So what am I looking at here? What's really important? I've circled them up here. What's really important? The slope and the y-intercept. Let's do the y-intercept first. Okay, it's a little easier that way. What is the y-intercept? It's -1. Very good. Okay, it's a -1. So what does that mean? That means my line, my yellow line, is going to cross the y-axis where? At the -1. So I'm going to put a point right there at -1. Now, can I just draw my line right now? Not yet, because I don't know how it slants. Does it slant the same way as this one does? Does it slant this way? Does it go up and down? Does it go across? Does it go? I don't know. What tells me how it slants? The slope, right there. And that is rise over run. So that tells me my slope. That tells me how much it slants. All right? So you've got two things in here. You've got your y-intercept, and it's just a point on the y-axis. It's always going to be on the y-axis. You just put it wherever that number is. If this was +5, where would you put the y-intercept? At 5. If it was -3, where would you put it? At -3. Everybody got that? So if it's -1, where do you put it? You put it right here at the -1. Now, what does this tell you? This tells you the what? Yep, that tells you the slope, which is rise over run. So where do you start? At the -1, at the y-intercept. Okay, don't start from the origin. Okay, start from the y-intercept, and what are we going to do? It's 2/3, so we're going to do what? We're going to rise 2, and we're going to what? Run 3. And these are both positive. So watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to rise 2, 1, 2. See, I just went up 2. I didn't go to the number 2. I just went up 2 spaces. I went 1, 2. All right, just stop right there. Don't put a dot just yet. And now what am I going to do? I'm going to run 3. Which direction? To the right. 1, 2, 3. And now I can put a dot. Once I got those 2 points, what can I do? I can make a line out of it. That's exactly right. Here's one thing I do. Let me show you this. If your points are too close together and you put your ruler there, sometimes you can slant your ruler this much, and it still looks like it hits those 2 points. You ever do that? Right? If your dots are really big, right? It looks like it still hits them. So what I'm going to do, just to make sure I slant it just perfectly, I'm going to go to this point right here. I'm going to rise 2, run 3 again. All right? And it should still line up, shouldn't it? Since it's the same slope. So let's do that. Let's rise 2, 1, 2. Let's run 3, 1, 2, 3. Put a dot right there. Now if I rise 2 and I run 3, I'd be off the graph. Let's do it this way. Let's go down this way. So what if I went down 2? Then I'd have to go where? I go 3 to the left because negative over negative is positive. So watch. I'm going to go down 2 and to the left 3. Look at that. It still lines up, doesn't it? Okay? And let's do it one more time. Let's go down 2 to the left 3. And they all line up. That way, we've stretched them out a little bit so that when you put your ruler on there, your straight edge, whatever you're using, then it'll all match up. So watch. I'm going to start there. I'm going to go through like that. I'll extend this. You don't want to just connect the dots. You want to just extend out a little bit. All right, so put a line here, and there it is. Now, this is rise 2, run 3. It kind of looks the same as this, but it really doesn't. It's close. They look parallel, but they're not. All right, because remember what we did on that last problem on the quiz? They got to be the same slope. So these are close, but if you kept on extending this out, these would eventually touch. You see that? All right, so they'll eventually touch, and these eventually get further away. All right, so it's a little bit wider here than it is up here. You got that? Even though it's pretty close. All right, so that's your line. So you should be able to do that. Anytime I give you an equation in slope-intercept form, you should be able to graph the line. All right, let's start with a fresh one. Let's do it a couple more times just so you get the hang of it, okay? It's really not that hard. So let's do some blue. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you, I'll switch it up a little bit. All right, there we go. What if I asked you to graph that? Okay, and that's what I'm going to ask you to do on some of these problems. I'm going to say graph this thing right there. There's only 2 things you got to worry about. What are the 2 things? The slope and the y-intercept, okay? Let's do the y-intercept first. Which one's the y-intercept? It's positive 1. So what do? We come over to the graph and put a point, put a dot at positive 1 on the y-axis. Everybody should be able to do that, correct? All right. Now, what's the second thing we got to look at? Okay. So it's negative 3, which is what? Rise. And it's over positive 2, which is run. Where do we start from? Start from the point, the y-axis or the y-intercept, okay? So we start at the y-intercept, and what do? We rise what? We go down 3, right. We rise negative 3, and rising negative means we go what? Down. So let's count down. 1, 2, 3. Don't put a point just yet. Now we run 2, which means we go which direction? To the right 2 places. Now we can put a point. Everybody with me? Let's just do it a couple more times. Let's go down this way and across this way, and then let's do the same thing up there, just so that we don't have those points too close to each other. Because if they're too close to each other, our line that we're going to draw may not be super accurate. So let's do it one more time. It's not that hard. Now you got the gist of it, right? So it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Let's do it one more time. 1. Do we have enough room? Yep. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Right there. They all line up, don't they? Now, if they didn't line up, you messed up somewhere. All right. Let's do it this way. Let's do a couple more over here. So this time, instead of rising negative 3, what could we do? Right, we could do that. Isn't that the same as negative 3 over 2? Yeah, so let's rise positive 3. 1, 2, 3, and run negative 2 right there. Does it still line up with all the other ones? Yep, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Still lines up. All right, that way, I'm just a little bit more accurate. See how all the points line up on that line right there? So that must mean I did it right. All right, so we got that, and there it is. And that's your answer, because it said to do what to it? It said to graph it. All right, so what am I looking for? If I was gonna grade this, if it was a quiz or a test or something, how would I grade it? First of all, I would look to see if it goes through the y-axis at positive 1, and then I'm looking at your points. I'm seeing if you did a rise of negative 3 and a run of 2. If you did that, all right, then you get it right. It doesn't have to be super accurate. You don't even have to use graph paper, all right? But be very, very careful, okay? If you're not using graph paper, here, I'll show you. So let me just copy that. Like on a quiz or a test, if I ask you to graph something, I will put a little graph thing, like that square with all the grids on it. I'll put that on there so you can be pretty accurate, okay? So, but let's say you didn't have graph paper and you're doing this on your own homework, and you just do it on regular line paper, okay? First of all, I would get a ruler, okay, or a straight edge. How can you make a straight edge if you don't have a straight edge? Just take a piece of paper and do what? Just fold it. That's right. Just fold it. You got a nice straight edge, okay? That's a good way if you don't have a ruler, all right? But one thing you got to be careful about is how far you space all the numbers, all right? So don't make this 1 and make that 2 and make that 3. That doesn't make sense, does it? Make them evenly spaced as best as possible. 1, 2, and then same thing here. Again, if you have a ruler, especially if it's in centimeters, you know, do like, I don't know, centimeter might be too much, but like just mark them off, okay? I don't have a ruler on this computer right here, but I guess I could get one, but just make sure they're evenly spaced. If you don't have a ruler, I don't know, that might be a little closer than what these are. See, I'm trying my best to make them evenly spaced, and I still kind of messed up a little bit. All right, but this is what you can do on your paper. Everybody with me? And so let's do an equation. Somebody make one up for me. Nothing too crazy. I want to stay within my graph. So don't give me numbers like 100 or 20 or 30. Give me some easy numbers. So y equals what? Give me a good slope. 2/3. Didn't we just do 2/3? 1 over 2. I heard negative 1 over 2. I like that one. And then what do we write next? X. And then a b, a y-intercept. Negative 3. Didn't we do negative 3 already? Let's do negative 4. That's good. Okay? So let's say you drew your graph right here and they asked you to graph this thing. They asked you to graph it. Where do we start? Start with what? Which is the y-intercept. So that means this is the y-axis. So we go down to negative 4 on the y-axis. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we put a point, put a dot. Everybody's got that part, right? Yeah, that's super easy. Now, what about this? We could go negative 1 over positive 2 for our rise over run, or we could go what? 1 over negative 2. Now look, I don't really have any room to go down on this, do I? All right, I could put a little thing here, but let's go up instead. So let's do what? Let's go up 1 and what? To the left 2, all right? And try to be as accurate as you can. Let's just do it one more time. Let's go up 1 and over 2 again. They still line up pretty good, don't they? Make a line. Don't just connect the 2 points. Extend it out a little bit. Put arrows on the ends because they are lines. They're not line segments. They keep going. And that would be it. That's your answer. So if I ask you to graph this equation right here, that's how you would graph it. What do you think? What if I asked you to graph this? Now we're getting a little tricky. Let me grab this. What time are we out of this? I always forget on Wednesday. 38. Oh, we only got a few minutes. Okay, that's okay. All right, what if I asked you to graph... Oops, click off of that. There we go. Now, this is going to look a little different. So we're going to have to do a little bit of extra work. 3x plus 4y equals negative 4. What's the problem with this? What is it? Nothing's wrong with it? Okay, because it's not in slope-intercept form, is it? What's slope-intercept form? Y equals what? mx plus b. Right? So we want to get it into this form. So what are we going to have to do with this? We're going to have to move the x over, like Zion said. Everybody see that? And then I want to get y by itself. So I have to do a little bit of algebra here before I even graph it. Now, there is another way to do this. And in my notes, I had us doing this first. but I thought it would be better to do it this way and switch the order. So maybe tomorrow I'll show you another way to graph this. So what I'm going to do is I want to make it look like this, y equals mx plus b. So I want to get y by itself. So what do I get rid of first? Get rid of the 3x. All right, and I do that by doing what? Subtracting. Now, I could put minus 3x here, but look at my slope-intercept form. This x comes before just the number, doesn't it? So let's not make it negative 4 minus 3x. Let's make it what? Well, it's a negative, so it's not just 3x. It's what? It's negative 3x what? Minus 4. Do you see that? I just slid it. I took this 3x and I slid it right in between the equal sign and that number. All right, so don't put it on the end. Put it right in between here. One more step and we're ready to graph. What's the one more step? What do we do? Divide both sides by 4. So divide this by 4, and make sure you divide both of these by 4, not just one of them. Make sure everything is being divided by 4. So, of course, that cancels out. So what do we get here? Negative 3 over 4x. That's it, minus 1. Now, we could graph this. That looks familiar, doesn't it? All right, so we had to take it from this form, which has its own name. We'll talk about it tomorrow, right? And we had to change it to this form. So now we should be able to graph this. So let's graph it. What do we do first? Yep, y-intercept, okay? This is negative 1, so we put a point right there at negative 1. And now we do what? The slope, okay? So you could go negative 3 over positive 4, or you could go what? Positive 3 over negative 4. Let's do them both. All right, let's go negative 3 first. 1, 2, 3. Positive 4 run. 1, 2, 3, 4. You could just connect them that way, but I'm going to do it the other way too. 1, 2, 3 rise. Negative 4 run. 1, 2, 3, 4. Put a point right there. I got them stretched out enough, so I should be pretty accurate with this. That's the only reason I do it a couple times, just so I can be accurate on my graph. And there you go. It is a line, so we should put arrows on the ends. And there it is. You just graphed this crazy looking thing right there. It's not super bad, is it? Do you guys remember doing this in Algebra 1? Do you remember y equals mx plus b? Yeah. Yeah, that's something that they usually teach in Algebra 1. But again, even if you didn't have it in Algebra 1, it's fine. I taught you today from scratch, all right? So you didn't have to know anything about this before. We figured it out today. So I am going to not give you homework today, even though it says it on the lesson plans. We're going to push everything back a day, all right? So I'm going to teach you one more thing, then I'll give you homework tomorrow.